Squamous, terminal, she said. Lung cancer, squamous. Ted told his own lungs to breathe. How's a natural person who has love for his father supposed to react to this news, he wondered. I have to act like that guy. I'd like to do that for this woman, he thought. And as he composed his face to approximate sadness, he felt an actual deep and horrible sadness fall over him, and he stopped it. It's only a matter of months, she said. You didn't know? I just found out recently, Ted said. How recently? Very recently. When? Just now when you said it. She nodded. He's been sick for about 3 years. We're a close family, he said. He'd been sick for 3 years. Jesus Christ, he'd been given a couple years to live 3 years ago. How scared had he been? How lonely? Had he had one of his young girlfriends to hold his hand? The nurse kept talking to him, at him. He heard that Marty had had reductive surgery that had been minimally successful 2 years ago. He heard the phrase small cell, and that chemotherapy had bought some time. He found himself quite unable to concentrate, so words such as carcinoma and cytotoxic started floating up at him, untethered and meaningless, but full of evil import. More and more words like cyclophosphamide, VP16123, 1-ME1 nitrosodium. Ted had the sensation he was listening to a poem in another language, a poem about death. All the mides and minds, even sight rhymed in his mind's eye. The nurse must have seen the curtain fall over his eyes. You okay? I'm sorry I'm dumping a lot on you all at once. We can talk more later. Here. The nurse ran her long fingers down her white nurse's skirt and put her hands in her pockets. She pulled on the top of her shirt, revealing momentarily a bra that was perhaps too nice, too lacy, and too red for this work in this place. She pulled out a small business card. Ted told himself to breathe again. Always run out. Mariana Blatis, she said, extending her hand. Grief counselor. What? Grief counselor? Ted immediately thought of Charlie Brown and Good Grief. Was there a grief that was good? A good grief? Peanuts. But Marty was alive. She was a prematurely grieving counselor. She was more like a death counselor. So she consults with death and tells him who to take next. Ted felt a smile take over his face and did his best to reverse it. Grief counselor, death counselor, he repeated, looking at the card. That's charming. Like phlegm specialist. Or wound facilitator. Or ambassador of pus. Ted felt pretty good about coming up with those three on the spur. I work with the dying through their final stages, from shock to denial to anger to bargaining and depression to acceptance and peace. Sounds like a normal day for me, Ted said, except the peace part. That joke landed nearby, but not quite where he wanted it to. He became aware of trying to be too funny in the circumstances. She said, specifically what I'm doing with your father is trying to help him in his final days to reach a state of acceptance, to seize the narrative of his life. Oh, Ted said, is this that Kubler-Ross stuff, that James Hillman Jungian jive, Ted said, trying to join with her and display his erudition, but realizing immediately that he sounded like a condescending shithead. He felt deeply angry at cancer, and she was there in front of him, and he was in danger of taking it out on her. He didn't want to. You've read Kubler-Ross? She asked. Yes. What do you think? Well, I haven't actually read it. More like I read about it. Read about it. I see. If this conversation were a ball game, Ted would be 0 for 3 so far, with 2 strikeouts and a tapper back to the mound. This is a letter. She offered him a leaf of a yellow legal pad. A letter he wrote to the universe. This universe? Asked Ted, realizing that if he could not stop sounding condescending, he might as well own it. Sees in the now the narrative of being an asshole. Maybe she'd misread condescension as strength and intelligence. Fingers crossed. The universe you and I appear to be in, he wrote it to this universe. She nodded and pointed at the letter. Ted didn't want to read it. He continued riffing as he turned the letter over in his hand. Do you need to address a letter to the universe? Dear universe? Probably not, right? I mean, No need for the cosmic mailman. It's already there in the universe that it's addressed to. The nurse sighed and eyed the letter. Ted might have been beginning to try her patience. He began to read aloud. Dear Ted, I got the lung cancer, which is fucked because I always only bought the cigarettes that were harmful to pregnant women and babies. Of which I am neither, so I figured I was safe. Silly me. This just in, Tarryton ad account exec hoisted by his own tarry petard. Ted looked up and said, funny, sort of. Get to the Red Sox stuff, Mariana said. Ted looked at the letter, blah, 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 here. I was conceived in 1918, on the night the Sox last won the series. An illegitimate son of an illegitimate woman, a different curse of the babe. Clever quasi-historical pun, illegitimate spelled wrong. Mariana smiled. What? Said Ted. Your father told me you wasted a first-class mind to throw peanuts at Philistines. Ted couldn't decide whether he was happy that his father had described him like that to this woman or unhappy. He went back to the letter, scanning down with his finger, blah, blah, blah. I think he's lost his mind here. It's June 15th, and the Sox have a 5.5 game lead. Surely they will finally win this year, and then surely I will die. The prophecy of my miraculous birth coming full caduceus, circle caduceus. Go dad with your thesaurus. Yeah. That's rather flowery and overwrought. Back to the letter. Until October I am dying, but cannot die. Until October I can leap from tall buildings, catch bullets in my teeth, and shit silver dollars. Didn't see that coming. Until October I am a god. Okay, well, I'd say there's definitely been a successful seizing of narrative happening here, and wow, what drugs do you have him on, and may I have some? Mariana said simply, he needs you. He needs you to help him finish his life's work, a healing fiction. Mariana took his arm in hers and began to steer him toward one of the rooms. Fuck fiction, Ted said. I would think now is the time to face the facts. Not a novel he's actually writing down, she said. He's rewriting it in his mind, the novel of his life. Yeah, Ted said. That doesn't sound too insane. She said, there are a million ways to tell a life story, Theodore. Chipmunk reference. Let it pass. As a tragedy or a comedy or as a fairy tale with baseball teams that can keep you alive like magical warlocks, he is trying to tell you his story his way. I'm trying to appreciate what you're saying, but you can't just rewrite history, Ted protested. You can't just rewrite the past. There are such things as facts that get in the way. Pesky facts. She stopped him in front of room 714, Babe Ruth's career home run total. She pulled him a little closer, dropping her voice to a whisper, fixing him with her deep brown eyes. He felt her breath land on his face and ear. He lost his mind momentarily. This was probably as close to a woman he'd been in 3 years without paying for it. The Dead saying something again from Sugar Magnolia about coming up for air, trying to tell him something. Keep it down, Bob, Jerry, guys. The way your dad sees it, she spoke. He's been the villain, he's been the victim, and he's been the goat. Now he wants to die a hero. A man's voice, ruined and harsh, vibrating on his few remaining vocal cords, came from within the room. Ask her for her card, you moron, was what his father called out. Woo!